So in machine learning, we have this thing I like to think of as a conference culture. So the main currency in machine learning is actually conference papers rather than journal papers. And everybody, students and faculty, we like to get our best work into conferences because it counts the most. And I like to think of there as being a pulse that beats several times a year that kind of drives the research cycle. And the upbeats are around these conference deadlines. So I wrote down AI Stats, ICML, and NIPS. These are three of the biggest conferences in machine learning. Their deadlines are kind of equally spaced out across the year. And if you were to walk around, let's say, the 8th floor of Gates the week before NIPS, you would really feel the excitement, or maybe the stress of this impending deadline. It kind of oozes through the walls. And we really, at the machine learning department here at Carnegie Mellon, try to accommodate these deadlines as best as we can. In a lot of our graduate classes, for example, we will we'll like delay homework, so we'll kind of reduce the amount of work that comes around these conference deadlines to give our students the best chance to get papers in. So NIPS is probably the premier machine learning conference. It also is the silliest name. This December, about 6,000 people will congregate in Long Beach, California to hear about the world's cutting-edge machine learning advancements. And as I mentioned, in the ML department, we really try to accommodate conferences as much as possible through our teaching. In fact, most of our PhD courses are project-based. So 4 of the 5 required courses that our PhD students take culminate in a project that mimics something like what you would submit to an ML conference. Smaller in scope, but it's certainly kind of a good step along the way to getting a paper into a conference. So I've taught for the last 5 years the optimization course in the machine learning department. This is one of the required courses, and it's also project-based. Just kind of by way of background, optimization has changed a lot since the inception of linear programming in the 1940s all the way to today. That both the type and the scope of problems we solve are very, very different, and it's become a really central part of machine learning and machine learning research. And the class has actually grown in size dramatically over the last maybe 4 or 5 years. It started off being 30 to 40 PhD students, and the last offering was well over 100 PhD students with probably 100 more on the wait list. So like the other core courses, it's a project-based course, so the class finishes with a project that students would complete with their, usually in groups of 2 or 3, their peers. But we decided to kind of kick it up a notch and try to make the entire project submission and completion process as much like a conference as possible to mimic the real thing and to give them an authentic in-class kind of conference experience to finish off the semester. So here's how we did it. The first thing we did is about a month and a half before the end of the semester, we had each team, so again these were comprised of like 2 to 3 students, submit a paper, which was a draft of their final project paper, anonymously through this system called EasyChair. And EasyChair is this wonderful website. It's free to use. It actually is used for gathering conference submissions for many real conferences like Colt, for example, another machine learning conference that uses the EasyChair system. So it actually is the exact same submission process they would use for some machine learning conferences. And then we had each student in the class serve as a referee to about 4 to 5 papers. So the process was double blind. They didn't know whose paper they were reviewing, and the people who got the scores back didn't know who reviewed their papers. And we gave them a pretty detailed rubric. So here are some of the things that they would have looked at. It was inspired by the rubric that you would see as a referee for like a real machine learning conference, although the focus was a little bit less on novel research content and more on, let's say exposition and presentation quality, it being a class rather than an actual conference. So then we took the top 12 projects as they were scored by this peer review system, and the program committee, which consisted of me, and sometimes I had a co-instructor for the course and my TAs, but I had some wonderful TAs. I actually see some TAs here in the audience. We looked through these top 12 by hand, and we picked out the 6 that we thought were the best in terms of both diversity and in terms of excellence. And these 6 were then designated to give spotlight talks at a conference that we would hold at the end of the semester, an in-class conference. And then we did it in such a way that the peer review scores could only help you, they couldn't hurt you. So you got extra credit for being selected as a spotlight, but if you got bad peer review scores, then there was nothing that could have negatively affected your project grade otherwise. And then the last step was that we held a conference. We called it COPS, the CMU Optimization Symposium. I think it's had maybe there's been 3 COPS conferences so far the last 3 years I've taught the optimization course. I didn't have the foresight to take a picture of it, so I grabbed a photo from ICML one of the big machine learning conferences. And we held it during the 3-hour block that was given to us by the registrar in the final exam period. And we tried as much as possible to make it like a real conference. So we advertised it through email and through posters to people outside the departments. We bought coffee and cookies and snacks and things to put out. One year, actually, one of the admins, she got a cake that said COPS, and everyone could eat. And we had alternating poster and talks, just like you would in a setup similar to like you would see in a conference. And at the end, the program committee got together and we chose the best talk and the best poster. And we presented them a trophy with some very small prizes like candy and stuff like that. So, okay, so what are some lessons that I would take away from this? So one thing that struck me as being obvious only after the first offering was that it's important to encourage students to be nice in the referee process. I think students think of this referee process as, you're supposed to be critical. It's the nature of a referee. But you'll get that plenty in real life when you submit to conferences in spades. So it's important to tell them to be constructive with their language. They can be honest with the scores, but be constructive with their language. I also found putting time into the little details, like putting time into making the conference as realistic as possible, really pays off. I think it gets the students excited. And it's a climatic way to finish the semester. It's a fun way for everybody to finish off the semester. And one kind of broader point is that in STEM classes, so like this class or most of the classes we teach in machine learning and statistics, there tends to be little focus on presentation skills or communication skills. And I think anecdotally, over the years that I taught the course and had this system going, these conference components actually help students present things both in terms of poster, talks, the written papers, and even the referee process itself. Makes them think about somehow what makes a good exposition. Think critically about the process of writing. So maybe it's something you could incorporate into your courses as well. Okay, thanks very much.